Okay, so even though we are focused on climate science, climate change, and climate impacts, we said climate science and climate change cannot be really separated now, so we are looking at both together. By the same token, we cannot really separate climate change impacts on humans and the climate, Earth system, and so on, versus other activities of human beings that indirectly affect the environment and eventually climate change Earth system as well. So as two examples, I will do a couple of podcasts on plastic pollution, which doesn't so far directly affect climate, but it has become so massively extensive in the ocean that it is likely beginning to affect ocean circulation and climate as well as the interactions. So let's start with this nice visual capitalist graphic on per capita emissions by country. So here are the regions: the Americas, Asia, Oceania, Africa, and the Middle East, Europe, and Russia. So we have the Americas. US dominates. China, you can here look at the population as well, and obviously you want to see total emissions if you want by multiplying the per capita with the population. So China would be quite large in that sense, whereas something like India, which has a carbon footprint of 1.7 tons per year with a population of 1.2 billion or so, will still be less than let's say China or the US. So with that in mind, we already know that I have seen this in other ways before, but this is a nice way to look at it. So you can look at the numbers. For China, it's 14.4 tons per person per year. For China, it's 7.1. India is 1.7. As I've mentioned in another context before in another podcast, even though average of China is about half or less of the US, you know that the top 10% of the rich people in China will be consuming or living a very high carbon footprint life as well, and the same goes to India. So the average is averaging over very poor people who are living on basically very little carbon footprint versus the rich people who are living a Western lifestyle. So those kinds of details have to be kept in mind as well. And there is a waste component. These consumptions obviously come with a lot of waste in terms of resources, but also these lives are rich in the material that is produced by humans that go into computers, cars, phones, buildings, etc., that humans create, that we will look at in the last podcast. But there is also a lot of plastic involved in everything, of course a lot of mining, etc. So let's start with the plastics. Okay, so these are the kind of horrifying images you find. This is in fact from an article I wrote on cows eating plastic in India. There is literature that shows that fish in the ocean are potentially eating plastic in the ocean because they have the aromatic chemicals on them, which confuses the fish about whether that's food or not. So if it is small enough and it's got that chemical indicator that they think of as food, then they consume. And my guess was that cows, which also have special ability to smell their food, in fact they have an additional organ called the Jacobson's organ in the roof of their mouth that allows them to smell things. So I suspect they are also eating plastic and cardboard because they think it's food. And this is an image of plastic bags caught in tree branches in Southport, UK. This is of course the horrifying image of plastics in the ocean and a tortoise turtle eating it, and here is a turtle that's caught in abandoned fish net. A lot of this happens. Of course, there are bycatches as well. Dolphins getting caught, turtles getting caught, swordfish, lots of other bycatch happens as well. And not surprisingly, the information on plasticized animal species is not very heartening. So here is a number of species with documented records of marine debris ingestion: toothed whales, pelicans, gannets, boobies, marine ducks, divers, so some of the species that dive into the water to catch their prey, dugongs, sea cows, true seals, penguins, you get the idea, fish, 92 species, albatrosses and other procellariforms, 84, and gulls, skuas, terns and ox. I'm not a biologist, so you can see I'm struggling a little bit with some of these names, right? And there are plasticized animal species which get entangled. These are the ones that ingest plastic. These are the ones that get entangled. So a number of species with documented records of entanglement in marine debris. So polar bears, too, the same ones we saw before in terms of fish, invertebrates, true seals, eared seals, toothed whales, gulls, skuas, terns and auks, albatrosses and so on. And the sad thing is that many of the turtles that eat jellyfish, jellyfish are transparent filter feeders, and these plastics look just like jellyfish, so they are confused about whether that's a jellyfish or that's plastic. And there are those that eat because of the scent or the aroma of the plastic, and there are those that are visually being fooled into eating plastic, thinking they are food, jellyfish and so on. And the saddest news, of course, is that now there is so much microplastic. Even when you take a tea bag from Starbucks, let's say, I don't want to name any brand names, but a study was put out saying that the tea bags, when you dip them in this hot water, they are releasing billions of nanoparticles of plastic. Where is it going? Into your body. So now autopsies show that plastic is in every important organ in human body. So here is a person swimming in the plastic debris. Obviously she's not there to eat plastic, but we are unintentionally eating enormous amount of nanoparticles of plastic and microplastics, which is a sad story, of course. So now marine debris is everyone's problem. Worldwide sources of marine debris include shoreline and recreational activities dominating. You have smoking and related activities, lighters, etc., being discarded that end up into drains and oceans. Albatrosses, which feed on the fronts, swoop down and take whatever there is. They are found with lighters in their stomachs. Okay, oceans and waterway activities, dumping activities, medical and personal hygiene. COVID, for example, has resulted in massive number of masks being discarded carelessly and ending up in landfills and water bodies and so on. Okay. How long do items remain in the environment? Paper towel, 2 to 4 weeks. Apple core, 2 months. Plastic beverage holders, these end up in the ocean a lot and end up around the necks of many birds and fishes. 400 years. Plastic bottles, 450 years. Monofilament fishing lines that we saw, 600 years. Styrofoam cups, 50 years. Cigarette butts, 1.5 to 10 years. Newspapers, 6 weeks because they are coated with a certain chemical. Cotton rope, and you have glass bottles that are undetermined. Disposable diaper, plastic grocery bag, waxed milk carton, and so on. So many of the things that are supposed to be biodegradable actually do not biodegrade because they have been coated with plastics or chemicals which retard biodegradation. So we are also often being fooled even in terms of recycling. A lot of the material that you sort nicely and are collected, turns out they are not recycled as they were promised, or there are many things that are branded recyclable and actually are not recyclable at all. And of course, plastic production has gone up since 1950. This is in million metric tons and is projected to continue to grow into 2050. Okay, so overall, plasticizing of life is complete. Plastic is everywhere, and we will see a few more details when I come back and show other data, and then we will look at how plastic spreads through the system into the water bodies, into the rivers, out to the ocean. You can even dig up 20 feet into the ground in India in some parts, and you'll find plastic. So during the monsoon, there is a lot of water flow, debris flow, mud flow, and digging up of the soils and so on. So plastic digs in and goes quite deep, and you can imagine it stays there for hundreds of years in the end. Okay.